Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. You guys know who I am. I'm Dr. Angela Tester, and you know what I'd like to do. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest and our topic. Today, we are talking about the building blocks of communication. And my guest today is Dr. Carrie Alexander Colella, and we are talking to her about communication. We're talking about relationships. We're talking to her about all of the things that we need to make sure that we communicate and we communicate well. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get ready. All right. Hello, Dr. Carrie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Very nice to be with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Now, as is tradition around here, we don't read bios, but we do ask our guests to tell us a little bit about themselves. So before we get started with talking about the building blocks, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, let's see. I am a retired social worker. I have a master's in social work, and then I have a doctorate in communication, organizational leadership, focusing on communication and also business education. I am a mom of 3 adult college educated children, and I'm a grandmom for one grandson.
I love it. I love it. Well, I cannot wait to hear what you have to share with us today. And you are also an author, and I definitely want to talk to you a little bit later in the interview about your book, because I'm sure our viewers are going to enjoy what you have to say. Now, we know that there are 4 building blocks in particular that really help us with communication. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people may say 3, some people may say 5. There's various ways of breaking it down, but I want to concentrate on 4 today. I want to talk about people. When we talk about communication, people have a tendency to say, I don't know who my audience is sometimes, or I don't know how to really communicate well when I have a varied audience. So my question to you is, why is it important that we know who our audience is?
Okay, well, thanks for the question. I would say, though, in effective communication, knowing your audience means that you know why you're speaking and what they came to learn. So you need to know why you're speaking to them. They need to know the purpose of your conversation. And therefore, you need to also know about why they came. And let me just back up a minute and say that, communication is a two-way phenomenon. That is the sender and the receiver. So that no matter how many are in your audience, 2 to 200, each person is one person, and you're the second person, you're the sender. So you have to be sure, you have to be clear about who your audience is and how they can hear what you're saying. So you have to prepare. You have to prepare for that. So first of all, just know the purpose and know what you what you want to share. It doesn't matter so much as the variety of the audience, the variety of the attendees, but know what your purpose is and why they came to hear you.
No, the one thing that you said that I think is so important is you said it doesn't matter if it's 200, 2,000, 2 million people listening.
Right.
It is between the 2 people that
Correct.
viewer or that listener and yourself. You are so right there, because even as a speaker or as someone on radio and TV, when I'm the person in the seat and I'm listening to the other person,
Mhm.
you do have that connection when you feel as though the speaker is talking directly to you. It makes a
Correct.
world of difference. You are so right there. I love that piece of knowledge.
Mhm.
Now, the next question that I want to ask is, many times, I've heard people who are especially not a seasoned speaker. This is perhaps their first or second time doing a presentation, or they're filling in for someone. And one worry or concern that they have is that the audience is varied, in that perhaps you're a woman and you're speaking to an all male audience,
Mhm.
or you are a person of color and you are not speaking to an audience of color. The
Mhm.
various contrasts that we have there.
Mhm.
Why do you believe that people feel that the different backgrounds make them nervous or make them uncertain about how to communicate?
Well, I would say that it does. You are, first of all, you are able to speak to audiences that are different from you. So the short answer is yes. But the next question is, do you speak their language? Is it a multi-language audience? Sometimes people say men speak a different language, but not really, depending on the culture they coming into. So do you need an interpreter? Do you need a sign language? Do you need more time to prepare for your communication or your conversation? You need to be able to scope these out before you actually start the conversation or the communication. You have to prepare. If the communication is effective, you need to be prepared for all the barriers that you might face. With the lack of a low hearing, low verbal, a different language, whatever the language is, and also to have an interpreter or a sign language. So, you want to be heard, and more importantly, you want to be understood. So you don't want to go into a conversation or to a communication episode without leaving being heard and understood.
Oh, I love that. And the fact that you brought in the sign language aspect of it. There may be some people that do need, they may not have brought that up in conversation, but they do need
Yes.
that sign language interpreter there. That is such a good point. I like that you brought that in. And if I have found too that when someone does not live in a very diverse area, there are certain things that they simply don't think about. I
Mhm.
think that folks that live in very metropolitan areas, you have such a diverse community around you, so
Mhm.
you do learn to hear kind of with a different ear, because there's various languages
Mhm.
spoken around you. You
Yeah.
are you are so right there. Wow, I'm sure that just gave that gave someone something to think about, thinking
Yeah.
about the community as a whole. I love that.
Mhm.
Now, the next point that I want to ask you about is the message itself. Many times, the way in which we communicate one on one is totally different than the way that perhaps we would write or send an email to someone. And you have to make this presentation. How do you make sure that you are creating a clear, easily to understand message for that listener?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to knowing the audience, knowing the purpose of the conversation. You have to, in other words, creating a clear message means you need to know the audience and you need to know the barriers that you are going to face and you will face, and then you work hard to get rid of those barriers before you begin the conversation or the communication. So really knowing the audience, knowing the purpose, and being prepared. Go back to the part about maybe you might need an interpreter, you might need a sign. Don't walk into a situation where you don't know what the audience is going to need, because you want them to leave having understood what you brought to them.
Mhm. And I like how you say address some of the barriers. If you're able to attack the barrier, go ahead and attack it. I
Yeah.
think one way in which most people do it, and perhaps they don't even realize that they're doing it, is by reading that bio or asking someone to introduce themselves, right? So
Yeah.
especially when there's a symposium or there's a panel, introducing each one of those people, you hear, oh wow, that person's a professor. Oh wow, that person has their doctorate. Oh wow, that person has worked in that field for 20 years or so. And you feel like you can trust and believe what that person is saying because they do have their credential for you to be able to trust what they're saying. So I like that. Break those barriers if
Yeah.
possible.
Absolutely. And again, you may not have an educated audience, so you need to be clear about who you're speaking with. So even though you might bring the experience and the education, the language your language could still be a barrier to the audience that's listening to you. So again, know the audience, know what they can receive from you. Do some work ahead of time, so that you know that when you leave, you are understood.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. That is such a great piece of information there. Now, along the same line of the message, many people will say, I know I have something to say, but I don't know how to say it. So there are people out there that says, you know what? I think I could give a TED talk. I just don't know how to put a TED talk together. Or I believe that my story can be so empowering. I just don't know how to put it all together. Why is that an important step of delivering your message?
Well, I mean, it goes back to the purpose and what is your passion? What is your expertise? What is your passion? What's the purpose of initiating the conversation? If you're not sure of your message, then you need to pause that conversation. You need to say, okay, can I get back to you? Or can you give me a minute? Just pause that conversation until you can better prepare your message. There's nothing worse than a confusing message. When you're in front of people, you don't want to be confusing. You didn't come there to not be understood. You want to be prepared, and you want people to understand what your message is. So pause the conversation. Most people, what I say is, most people do have something to say, but is it something that someone wants to hear? What is your passion? Pause just means, you just give yourself the privilege of getting better prepared, getting better positioned for the message that you want to convey. So, if you're confused about your message, you need to hold on. Don't go out in front of people until you're clear about your message, and make sure that you convey confidence when you're speaking to an audience. Don't just go unprepared. Preparation is so important.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it really is. I think that some people don't it's great if you can talk off the top of your head. And I think that for many people, they're able to do that because they have years in the game. They've been doing something for, 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years. They have the education, and sure, they're able to do that. But at the same time, there's nothing like being prepared about the subject matter at hand. You are so right. But
Yeah.
I love that. Pause.
Yeah.
Say, I'll get back to you on
Yeah.
that one. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, people can give examples, like you talked about the experience they had out of if it's out of context. But you need to be leaning back into the purpose of the conversation. So you don't want to stay outside the context of the purpose. You want to use that time to give an example that's going to strengthen your point, not weaken it. And you don't want to lose the audience. You don't start telling jokes that may not be funny. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the next point is the context. And my question for you there is, how can a writer, a speaker, a teacher, whomever it is, make a topic fit into another context to make it relevant for the conversation.
Right. Yeah. Did we get ahead of ourselves here? Because I just said, yeah, if you have examples of or life experiences that you can bring up that will strengthen the conversation and make the point clearer, don't hesitate to use that. But again, stay focused on the purpose of the conversation so that you don't lose it. You want to use examples that strengthen the conversation and hold the audience's interest, and hopefully they get what they came to receive from you.
Now, do you find it helpful when you're in an event type situation? Do you find it helpful when the speaker that you are listening to, when they add those personal bits and pieces, when they share a piece of their life or a story about someone that they know, or try to at least make it sound like it's personal? Do you find that to be helpful in your understanding of what they're talking about?
Well, I mean, I think at the beginning of any speech, it's really good to find some way to relate to the audience. So if you want to start off by telling, a story of your, maybe your first speech, or how nervous you were, or this is to make, you want to use an example of yourself to humanize yourself with the audience, to make yourself more relatable. And then if you've done that halfway during the speech of the program, it would be appropriate. People would understand it better if you introduced it going in, rather than all of a sudden you're going to talk about something personal that nobody even heard anything personal about you up until this point. That would not be appropriate.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Now, staying along on the same context of, staying along the same subject line of context, some people have a very hard time staying on message. And we know that there are some folks that will talk all around the farm. They will go over there and over there, to the point where sometimes you even ask yourself, what were they talking about? What is the point here? For someone who knows that they struggle with staying on message, what are some things that they can do, or what's one suggestion of something they can do to make sure that they don't lose the point, that they keep the context?
Well, I can tell you, not staying on the topic, once again, weakens your point. So it all goes back to preparation. So if you know the purpose of the conversation, the purpose why the audience are there listening to you, then you can prepare. Once again, if you off the topic, it's going to weaken the point. You don't want that. You want to be heard. You want to be understood. And if necessary, you want to allow people an opportunity at the end to ask questions. Some people can do that in the middle and still stay on topic. But I think that does take time. That does take practice. So one thing is practice. Practice does not make perfect, but practice makes better, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
make sure that when you go into a speech or a conversation, whether it's one-on-one or with a couple of friends, you need to know what your point is that you want to convey, and you want to be prepared with information that can support your point. So muddy in the waters, not staying on topic is, I think it's, you have to have a lot more skill. If you're not able to stay on the topic, or if you get off topic and you can't drag that back to the whole point, I would say that's a disaster. You have to stay on the topic that people came to hear from you.
I'm thinking about, there are some people that I think when they have notes, or they feel as though they've written out their speech, that makes them less than in some way, shape, or form. But I find that if you're dealing with a person who is easily pushed off of topic, or someone asks a question and they kind of go in that direction and they're not able to get back on topic, that having that speech, having what you want to say printed out in paper form, or have your iPad with you, can be very helpful, so that you can simply look down to where you were, and you can jump back in and get back moving in that positive direction. Because like you said, muddying the waters just makes the presentation worse. It looks bad for the company that invited you. It looks bad for the presenter. And I like how you said that. Make sure you do not muddy the waters. That is awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that, you want to be prepared. That's the main
Yeah.
thing. If you're prepared, and even if you have your iPad, some people are turned off by, you taking a look at your iPad. But
yeah.
So when you get off, let me just say, if you get off the topic, find a way to easily facilitate back to the topic. Doing it abruptly, that's not a good thing either. You don't want to be abrupt. You want to be smooth, going back to what the purpose is.
And you are so right. I find that when I am the speaker for many events, one of the things that they ask is, do you need a podium? Do you want a podium? Will you be using your iPad? I had one person that asked it kind of the opposite way. And it was, we have a podium for you, so bring your iPad. They just assumed that you would have paper or you would have your iPad, as opposed to, do you need something for your iPad? And I find that we really do have to have these moments of communication, be it that we are talking to our friends or it's professionally, to make sure that everyone is on the same page. You're right. Some people may be turned off by your iPad, where other people assume that you have so much to say. There's no way you're going to deliver all of that without having your iPad. So that is a good note. Make sure you're checking with that event planner of what is the expectation there. I love that. I love that.
I think so. And I think you might even make a request that you don't feel comfortable staying static in front of a podium the entire time. So let me have some room to move around on the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you need like the projector, because you do want to walk around and you want people to be able to see, that is so true. Having that communication with that event planner can really make or break your presentation. I love that. I love that. Now, one question that I get asked a lot, and many times in therapy sessions, as opposed to in a speaker context, and that is the difference between listening and hearing. People say many times, you're not listening to me. Other folks will say, but I don't think you're hearing what I'm saying, right? Many times folks even use the two words interchangeably. How have you found, as someone who talks about communication, what is the difference, or how should people understand the word hearing and listening?
Well, in my opinion, listening means you're silent, but hearing means that you are interacting with the person that's speaking, meaning you can interrupt the conversation for clarity. So once again, communication is a two-way phenomena. And if you're standing there and someone has just spouted out a whole couple of sentences that you're not clear about, you need to be I would say, open to someone interrupting that conversation. And if it's you need to feel free to interrupt, to say, let me clarify. Is this what you meant? Because this is what I heard. Or did I hear you say it this way? So I would say that, hearing is being understood. Listening is being silent. And in order for you to understand, sometimes you have to interrupt and interact with the speaker.
You're absolutely right there. And I love how you gave that piece of advice. Any of my counseling clients are going to say, that's exactly what Dr. Angela says. So when you're confused or you're not sure about what the other person says, repeat back to them what you believe you heard. I believe I heard you say this, that, and the other. Is that correct? Yeah. And many times the other person will realize that you didn't hear correctly what they what they were trying to articulate. So that is always a really, really good thing to do there. I love that. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that at its core, communication is the magic that happens when the speaker has said one thing and he's heard the very way that he said it. That's the
Yeah.
magic of communication. It's interactive. And if someone hears me and understands what I've said, I feel so empowered.
Yeah. Yes, it really and truly does make a world of difference.
Absolutely.
You are so right there. And I think that we forget the importance of communication, not just professionally, but
Yeah,
also in our personal lives.
for
And
sure.
boy, does that make a difference.
It
Mhm.
does. Yeah. The energy level switches and changes. I'm thinking communication could save the world if people were able to really focus in it enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what a great note to take a very quick break. If we could pause and communicate better, boy, can we get so much more accomplished.
Yes,
I love it. I
no
love it.
question. Yeah.
I love it. Well, viewers, we need to take a very short break, but don't worry, we'll be right back. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. Now, Dr. Carey, you have a book that is available for our viewers today. And the title of the book is Communication, the Heart of Organizational Leadership. Love the title. Can you tell me, how did you come about that title?
Well, actually, I was working on, finishing up my doctorate, and I needed a topic for my dissertation. And so this is what came to me after collaborating with my committee and lots of other people. That communication for me is key. It's a passion that I have that was uncovered during my research. So that's the piece that gave me the title. It is the heart. It's the heart of organizational leadership, but it's also the heart of everything, right? Communication is the heart of how we move forward in life.
Now, why do you believe that communication is especially vital for those that are wishing to move into leadership positions? Like, there are certain things that we talk about when we're just and not to be offensive to anyone, when we're just the worker bees, right? When we have those entry level positions, there's conversations that either are or are not had with our entry level folk. But the more you go up that corporate ladder, different conversations are had. And there are certain conversations you have with potential leaders. Why is communication one of them?
Well, one of the things that one of the purposes of my research is that I actually did interview and survey frontline workers in a large organization. And even though my hypothesis was that there was a breakdown between the frontline workers and the managers, I had to provide evidence that would prove that. And so that's what I set out to do. And of course, the research supported it just by the numbers that yes, there is a communication gap between frontline workers and managers. And so that was what I found. And that's how the book came together. It's like, sometimes you think if you let people see what the issues are, that they would change. Not all the time, and certainly not quickly. So, but that was the purpose, was to get the top level managers to realize that the people on the front line had valuable information that would improve their morale, improve their productivity, and just energize the agency in a way that it hadn't seen before. And so that's what we did. That's what I did. I found that, just in talking to some of the frontline workers, some of them refused to speak to me about how they felt really, because even though I said this is an anonymous survey, they were afraid, nervous that somehow management would find out they said such and things, and they would get fired. So a lot of people just refused to participate in the study, although they fully agreed that it was necessary, it was needed in the agency.
Yeah. And that alone kind of proves the point that many times people are making, where they just don't believe you, because if it's, oh, answer the survey while you're at work, and people will say, but it's attached to my work email. How is it anonymous if it's sent from me at yourcompany.com? You know that it was me. So I'm not going to fill it out. So it really does become a problem. And I'm sure you address this issue as well. You do hear that statement of, it's coming from the higher ups, but they don't do our job. So they're telling us to do things that don't make our lives easier. It tends to make it harder. So how much cooperation or how much resistance do you think is generated when those surveys are conducted? In the end, does it actually help the company? Does it actually help the worker? Or do things kind of stay the same, just with a fresh coat of paint?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on the agency, and it depends on the, the mindset of the owners or the administrators or the managers. I would think that since I did my research, there has been sort of a shift from pyramid to flatlining, where people feel free to speak, across, a different administration, different parts of the agency. But still, there is usually one head or one head committee that sets policy. So it's important for for managers and administrators to know that is in no way going to harm them. It is only going to improve their company if they will listen to what the issues are on the front line. It's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And even though you have much more experience in this than I do, but just hearing from those frontline folks, if someone were to ask, I would say the same thing. Just ask them, and boy, can they tell you.
Yes.
That's one thing that we also learn in ministry, is that many times we need to stop talking at people and talk with them. Ask people, how can I help you, as opposed to, here, you need this. So
that is a golden
I love
key.
that you're saying that.
That is a golden key. It's a golden key that, that communication, it's a golden key that unlocks so many stalemates, and it doesn't hurt anyone. Take the intimidation out of it. It doesn't hurt anyone. It helps everyone.
And my next question for you was going to be, do you feel that the message is being received by the managers, by the supervisors, those in the leadership positions? And you said that some things have changed. Do you have anything to add to that? Do you feel that there was a little bit of a slowdown, of course, because of COVID. So now people are reestablishing some of their rules, regulation, and the culture of their businesses. Do you think that some of the progress that was made, they'll be able to hold on to that?
Well, it would be worth another study, I think, because definitely things changed and people changed during COVID, and we lost so many of our loved ones during that time. And so how can we not be changed by that? So I think it would be a good opportunity. They would have an opportunity to better listen if they were, maybe someone would mention it to them, or suggest, here is an opportunity for you to take a look at your frontline loyal workers. Find out what it is that they're concerned about. Find out what it is they might suggest that they could do better if this, and this were true. It would be amazing to me to do that study now, to see if there could be, some movement towards a better communication.
Now, Dr. Carey, my last question for you, and that is for someone who says, I think she's onto this to something, and I want to create an environment, a platform where my workers or my coworkers feel that they are safe to make suggestions or leave us that anonymous tip about something that can help them be more productive or feel safe, or whatever it is. What do you suggest, or what is one thing that a manager, a supervisor, a person in leadership can do to let their fellow employees know you can talk to us?
Well, I just developed a class called the 7 Steps to Better Communication. I mean, I think once again, we go back to the preparation. I do believe that managers and administrators want to do better. They want to have a happy workforce with high morale and high energy. But if they don't have the tools or the skills, they can make a bad situation worse. And so it's a good time for them to step back and say, what's out there in the community that would help me? And I just spent time trying to develop a beginning process for managers and administrators to take a look. First, you have to go inside, right? Look at yourself, look at what you value, and humanize yourself, and then humanize yourself in the work environment. So yeah, I mean, I have a class that is going to be launching in June that will help managers to do that and to start that process. It may not be immediate change, but it will be the beginning of change. And then each agency is different, how they want to structure their agency. So, I'm available for consultations as well.
I love that. I love that. And isn't that a great first step? Just make that appointment to have that discovery call with you as a consult call, and just find out what are the options, what are some things we can do to get started. Just taking that first step is always the best thing to do. I love it. I love it. Now, Dr. Carey, I know that your book is, of course, available on Amazon or where books are sold, but if someone wants to get in contact with you, what is the best way to do that?
Well, if they want my book, they can just email me at onecaredc@gmail.com. I also have a website they can purchase from my website now. That's a new thing. And also Barnes and Nobles and Amazon. But, if you want it right away, just go to my website, which is www.listenfirstconsulting.com. And you can purchase it right there. Mm-hmm.
I love it. Dr. Carey, thank you so much for spending time with me here today on Daily Spark TV.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
All right.
And viewers, thank you for spending time with us here today as well. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you again today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.